Good morning and welcome to our special Valentine's Day session of festival experts with some of the UK's leading festival experts. Last week's session with Robert Richards of Glastonbury was terrifically informative and very exciting, and he gave us a good insight to the evolution of festivals as a channel, a reputable channel for your brand. So if you didn't manage to catch it on the day, you can view it on the website at your leisure. As per last week, today is all about your questions for our panel of Valentine's Day sweethearts. And yes, I can keep this up all session. Quite appropriately, we're going to be talking about creating long-term relationships between brand owners and festivals. So this is your opportunity to find out from our panel how you can make the most of your brand's festival footprint. Let me first introduce today's panel. Welcome to Rory Bett of Mama Group,
Thank you.
Who is the man behind some of the most successful festivals in the UK and also some of its premier music venues like Barfly, Hoxton Square Bar and Kitchen and the Forum. Rory, congratulations on your new role as CEO of Mama Group. And tell us how you got into the industry, if you will.
I am not a promoter. I've never put on a gig. I've never put on a festival. I'm completely unqualified for this position. Basically, I'm a media Herbert, really. So I've come from a media background, mostly on the sort of creative generation of ideas for brands. And I joined. I basically had slightly careered off the road. So I was the sales director for the Telegraph Media Group before I joined Mama. And unfortunately, I was now working for the paper that my father read, which really had its own sort of sequence of problems. But I sort of felt that I still had some life in me for youth brands. And then I met Adam Driscoll, who was the CEO of Mama at the time, and I joined Mama to set up a brand partnership business that was there to work with brands and agencies to define campaigns across multi-channels in music and around the festival culture specifically. So I started that and then had some pretty startling results from that. So we generated a really good business and a very good bottom line. And then I launched Papa Projects with Tim Harvey, who's Mama's creative director. And Papa Projects was a production business which also worked with brands to define event strategy for brands, which then also started producing all of the festivals. And then I sold that a couple of years later when HMV bought the business, and then I was made group commercial director a year ago, and now they've been stupid enough to make me back.
It's a stratospheric career progression. And
I think it's more like Dad's Army when they ask somebody, who's going to come forward to go into the bunker, and everybody takes a step back, and Pike wasn't really paying attention. So I'm more the Pike in the team, I think.
Well,
what? Okay, I'll do it.
I think we're privileged to have worked with you and Tim for many, many years, so long may that continue,
That's
Sergeant Pike. Having worked with
Don't tell him, Pike.
Having worked with so many major FMCG brands, Rory's going to be answering questions related to brand activation at different types of festivals. We'll come on to which festivals those are in a minute, whether there's a difference or should be a difference in how you approach those festivals and how best to maximise your brand's festival footprint. The other members of the panel will be familiar to those of you who joined us last week. Orla Barron and Paul Stuck are account director and event director, respectively, on Ignis Festival Activation. Hello, and they're going to be taking questions on how your brands can not only leverage the festival environment, but continue the conversation with consumers outside and beyond the festival environment. This is something I know that many brand owners struggle with in terms of setting KPIs for what is effectively a 4 or 3 day activation. So I think it'd be really interesting to have their top tips on how we do that. And I guess we're going to be talking a little bit about social media in that regard, Orla and Paul?
I think we're going to have to,
We're going to be touching on that,
okay.
Yeah. And finally, my colleague Ben Ingram, who will be your voice on the panel, asking your questions of the team here. But I've got one question for Ben first. How many Valentines did you get today, Ben?
I've
check the computer.
I will just count them all up. My girlfriend is watching and I'm just waiting for her one.
Just the one, Ben. Good. Ben, how's our question filter going to work for those who haven't been webbed in?
So similarly to last week, you've got two options. You can engage with us through the chat panel, which is down to your right as you're watching, or you can tweet us at Festival Experts or use the hashtag Festival Fridays. We had quite a lot of questions come in last week. We'll do our best to answer them all today, live, whilst on air. If not, we'll be hanging around for a little bit afterwards with Rory and the team, and we'll make sure that we get back to you on any question you might have.
Great. So Rory, let's talk about Lovebox and Wilderness, two of your key festivals, as very different examples of festival targeted and operational festivals. What are those differences and what is the impact on brands considering activation in those environments? First, give us a pen portrait of Wilderness and Lovebox. I know that Mark Carney, the Governor of the Bank of England, was seen at Wilderness, so presumably that has a filter to its targeting.
Didn't spend a penny. Followed him around all day. He didn't spend a penny. I think Sandcam spent a few quid though. Yeah, so just to for those of you who haven't been to Lovebox and Wilderness, why is the first question. The second point would just to give you a sort of little bit of a sense of the difference in the two shows. Lovebox is an East London festival. We are 30,000 per day. It is a festival that's now 10 years old, I think 11 years old this year. It's a festival which has always had a very creative centre to it. It's always been kind of heart, soul and rock and roll as far as its attitude. This year we are moving it in much more along a creative route. So we really believe there's a gap in London for much more of a kind of high arts, high concept, spectacular show than currently exists. Because the wireless shows are much more talent-led and stripped back as far as their creative is concerned. And of course we're in East London for an East London crowd, so it's going to have much more of an artistic fashion feel. It opens at midday, it finishes at 11, so the energy around this festival is very much come, go up, go home has always been the plan. So people never go home, they always go out.
Yes.
So really, as far as we're concerned, we've always prepared an audience for everybody else to make an enormous amount of money out of it. But with that, it's got an amazing energy about it, and the considerations for that as an inner London show with that kind of energy for brands is very considerable, because Wilderness is the antithesis of that is kind of as a high arcs concept show. It's a show which is not talent led. It's a show which appeals very much to the passions of a certain audience, which is a high spending middle class crowd, middle class audience, which have a very wide breadth of audience, so it goes anything from children up to 50. We're a kid-friendly show, we're not a family show, and it's really, when we keep the kids' numbers down, because it's really important for us not to go too much down the kids' route, but we appeal to people who like real music, proper folk music, but potentially in lots of different formats. We appeal to people who want to be stimulated from a grey matter perspective with amazing speakers, Intelligence Squared and the likes. We do banquets with headline chefs, so we do banquets twice a day, 500 seated with the likes of Mark Hicks or Angela Hartnett, it'll be this year. The site itself is absolutely beautiful, so it's very site specific, it's very built and constructed in that way, and is genuinely a celebration of the outdoors. And in the mix of all of those things, it has a real sense of humour. We do the Wilderness cricket match every year, which is quite bonkers. We have postmen giving people messages all over site that have been sent from tent to tent or banquet to banquet, and a variety of different theatre and art. And we always do a spectacular, so there's always a high art spectacular. So very different kind of show. And from a consideration around brand, it's a show that has ebb and flow. It's over a much longer time, so the energy levels drop and rise. And it also has all of these passion points, which should be a consideration for a brand to attach its personality to. So the two are very, very different with regards to consideration, and they sit in a marketplace which has got numbers of different shows that do it slightly differently. So those are all considerations.
I think your point about passion points is really interesting, and we'll come back to that. So, Ola and Paul, how do those differentiators, Paula, how do those differentiators impact on your advice to brands entering the festival arena?
I mean, I think if you look at the difference of camping festivals and non-camping festivals, first of all, obviously it depends on how affluent the audience is, but very much on those weekend festivals, the audience has less money perhaps to spend on what brands want to bring to the festival. So I think if it's a high spend item, it might be worth going more to one of the urban festivals, day festivals, as opposed to something that is sampling or a cheaper product, which might have more longevity at a camping festival. I think also there's the dwell time to think about, and at camping festivals, people have more time on their hands. As Rory was saying, daytime festivals, it's quite in, out, where are we going next? So there might be less time to engage on site, and in which case it needs to be a bit more sharp and fast hitting.
And be in tune with the energy levels, as Rory mentioned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think, as I say, I agree wholeheartedly with what all has said there, and I think if we separate the two, which Rory has very eloquently spoken about, they are very, very different in what they offer, let's say, brands in each of those particular festivals. I think if we use Lovebox as a prime example, as we just mentioned there, time is precious, I feel, from an outsider looking in. I see what people do. There's a lot more, go here, go to this stage, so-and-so is playing. So from a brand perspective, you are very, very restrictive in your communication period. So I would advise activation to be very focused with any kind of redemptions. I think there needs to be an instant redemption kind of element to it. Whereas going back to the camping festivals, and I think Rory has undersold wilderness, because I didn't think you could find a niche in the festival world of what wilderness have done, and I sincerely mean that.
Yeah.
So to go to wilderness, the engagement can be much more elongated, you have much longer, and your communication can be more thorough, I feel. So I think those are the two big differences for myself, looking at from a sort of custodian of brands, wants and needs, what I think they should consider. And research, as I'm always saying, just research what you're doing down there.
I think the only thing to add to that is the communication in a London show does allow, the marketing around that hits big audiences. So I think that's a big consideration. So we're a bigger show, so there's more capacity, so you can target more people on site, but it's also the touch points, the big poster work that we do for Lovebox around the town, etc. The enormous amount of media partnerships that we work with on site to make sure that we hit those key groups like Resident Advisor or young promoters like Soundcrash, etc., taking stages. So there are numbers of routes and channels that you can actually flow through to hit very large groups of people. And if your communication is right and it's in sync with the brand values of the show, you can actually achieve a lot through that. For Wilderness and a show which is much more high concept, you have to work with the creatives much closer to make sure that you create an integrated campaign. So for instance, one of there's some interesting movement at the moment, certainly in fashion, in high fashion, into the festival space, which is not something that we've ever experienced before. But brands with very high brand equity will only buy other brands with very high equity, where there's a residual exchange of brand equity. And the example that I would give around that, well, there's two, if we've got the time, but is that Chanel are going to be working with us at Wilderness, which is the first time they've ever done any festival activation.
Phenomenal. So
this is a connection between two brands actually coming together, and we're actually going to be building how you work with that brand then to create the noise around what they're doing is very key. So we're actually creating an Epicurean butterfly house, the Chanel butterfly house on site, but it's not going to be branded the Chanel butterfly house, but the way that it's going to be integrated will be actually you walk through it and there'll be jets of fragrance that are fired onto you as you walk through the butterfly house, and when you come out the other end you'll actually smell Chanel number 19. So it's going to be pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I think that marks a real move forward for the festival environment. Chanel and Muddy Fields.
It's a massive shift, and also it's really exciting because it's demonstrative of festival culture, actually attracting brand equity on that level. And this is all synced but from the fact that they're finding it difficult to communicate online in high brand aspect, because it's difficult to get the quality of the brand online and get that immersion, and also that press numbers are falling, so they've got to find a new way of doing it. And the other one is Mulberry, which has never done any work in festival activity. We've got an amazing relationship with Mulberry burgeoning, which is very likely to result in festival activity. But they also asked us to work with them in the design and delivery of their opening show at Fashion Week. So that's Wilderness coming to tell the story of Mulberry. And the interesting aspect of this was that Mulberry's actually only 50 years old. So it's a very young brand, but they are quintessentially British in terms of how they're promoting themselves here and abroad, but they don't have the history that Wilderness presents to the market in terms of all of its different aspects. So we designed something called the Mulberry Tales for them, which we were going to tell through the eyes of Wilderness with all of its avant-gardeness. So
You've got the CEO job.
Yeah.
I mean, that's phenomenally exciting news. Just coming back to touch points for brands. Obviously, the Love Box closes at 11 p.m. How do you maximise the touch points thereafter? You mentioned about other people, jokingly, other people taking your audience, but actually you try to keep that audience, do you not?
Yeah, we haven't been very good at it, to be absolutely frank. Being self-critical, we haven't been very good at it. In fact, I think what really crystallised it last year was there were 3 pages in Time Out described as the unofficial Love Box after shows. There's 3 pages of other people enjoying the audience we'd all warmed up. It's slightly crystallising as far as an idea, but with Love Box on site becoming much more of an East London spectacular this year, and a real focus on Saturday and Friday and Saturday fundamentally, we are building it's going to be called Love Box After Dark, which is there's going to be a bigger run-in, and then Love Box After Dark will take into effect, which is Love Box being experienced in a number of different areas. So not just in club, not just as sort of as a rather satisfying after show for the crew. There's going to be we're going to be working out how we do this in terms of club, etc. We're hopefully taking over the whole of the Ace Hotel and doing some stuff up there. So there's going to be a variety of different things. And then Sunday, very much, we're going to be trying to do something maybe outside of the walls of Love Box, but in a city, and come up with a concept to do there. So it's going to be much more of an extension of what Love Box is into different areas. And the important aspect for brand here is that it increases the footprint,
the engagement,
increases the engagement, and increases more communication. There's more things that we can attach brand to in the right way.
And I think that's really key for all brands going forward. Actually, Paul, how do we maximise on the ground engagement outside the
It's
Love Box
difficult to add a
spectacular?
lot more to what Rory has sort of just mentioned there, to be honest with you. But I think it depends which brands would be considering getting involved. Can continue using Love Box, because yes, Love Box is right in the middle of Victoria Park, right in the middle of Hackney. There are lots of pubs and bars and clubs going on around there, and I'm sure Rory will tie up with a lot more pre and after show parties, which obviously are the ideal link to continue that relationship with Love Box through Mama Group and that festival. Also, there are many, many other outlets. There's a huge amount of CTNs out there, multiple. So maybe if you, from a brand perspective, get your sales force out there, get driving your particular brands and wares in these outlets, and just build what is an 11-hour, 2-day, sort of 22-hour, less than 24-hour period. Maximise that in weeks, days, pre and after that event as well. That's what
And Orla, social media in that regard, how does that play?
Well, I mean, there are so many options available now in terms of social media. It's not just Facebook and Twitter that are out there, and different types that appeal to different age groups and different demographies. I think, technology is being used more and more to view and share experiences, and I think it's those physical experiences that festivals offer that can really help to tie in the offline and the online world and bring them together. But I think it's very important that brands produce something meaningful, both as the experience, but also engaging people online. It's not so much just kind of, oh yeah, we'll do social media and we'll add it to what we're doing. It's got to be well thought out. What do you want to actually achieve from it? And also use it as a tool for longevity. It's not just about the 2-3 days of the event. It's about using it more as a channel and ongoing.
Leading up to and falling through from.
Communications,
Okay,
somebody here knows what they're doing.
We're going to come to your questions in just a minute, but let me ask Rory, continuing our Valentine's Day theme, how best should brands approach long-term relationships with promoters? Who should they approach? What should those relationships look like? And how long should they be? Is it, for example, just about arena sponsorship, or are there other games one can play?
I think this is, for any brand, this is business critical, actually. There are a lot of agencies to choose from. You've got to choose one with a really good track record. Don't choose Ignis. Absolutely no idea what they're doing.
Take back the red rose.
It's quite clear. Take back the red rose. There goes Valentine's Day. But Ignis are a perfect example of an agency with really good track record in this space. The other thing that I think you do very well, and I'll just use you as an example, because it's why I'm sat here, but we've got a very long relationship with Ignis, and it's based on we've got a lot of stuff away in difficult circumstances in pretty pretty heavy fields, and it's actually an understanding of the festivals are town planning. There's nothing there when we arrive, and we build entire universes. So when we try and do that, there are problems. Problems occur, but it's agencies and clients that have their expectations managed to know two very important things. One is it's town planning and it's in a field. So when we try and break new ground, sometimes we break a nail. But it's also really important that the agency and the client have an expectation that when there is a problem, if everybody stays calm, with every problem there is also an opportunity. And in my experience, the ones that do it really well, we find something actually to make things better. So problems sometimes can actually improve your communication so much better.
I think, Rory, sorry to jump, I think there is one thing that I personally think is and it's trust. It's just, we've been working with Rory and the guys at Mama for many, many years now, and I trust this guy implicitly. Hopefully
not with his life.
Hopefully we don't bring in too many problems, but I think it's a serious point. We trust everything that Mama sort of discussed with us, and it always tends to come to fruition. So that's testament to
I do think that more broadly than that, any client, because there's hopefully at least one client online.
I think a few.
But I think any client looking at the festival business, there are definitely do's and don'ts. And I'd say for me, the most important don't is do not go to what I would describe as a chop shop agency. Go to an agency which is representing millions of different festivals, because usually there's not a personal relationship, it's just a financial relationship. And if you hear the words, we do the deal, and then the promoter delivers it, do not go anywhere near that. It's an absolute no-no. And because what will happen is they will do the deal, you will pay them, and then there will not be the communication or concentration between the client, that agency, and the promoter itself. And you will find yourself on site basically going, but we bought this, and they're going, I don't know anything about that. And by then it's too late, it's gone. So, and it definitely depends on what kind of advertising you're planning to do. If you're working on a more kind of mass effect, if you want to do much more badging and branding of things on festivals which are less boutique, if you like, which are more talent led, then the representation of that, I'd use Live Nation as an example. So you're going to get a large group of people, potentially high impact in terms of your impressions around the internet, etc. But them as a business, they are going to be concentrating on the sale of rights. So give you the right to do things. They're not really going to care about your output. So you're going to have two outlays. One is going to be the price of the rights, and then you've got to design and build your own footprint. Own footprint. And often when you look at the footprint at those shows, they're not very well thought through, and they haven't really been bolted into the culture and the passion points
and the credibility.
And also the audience isn't there for that reason. The audience have bought a ticket to go and see Drake or go and see Kanye West. They're not really there for anything else. It's a talent-led show. But when you're working with boutique festivals, which are, can have very, very good effect, you've got a longer time with them, and but you need to work with the promoter and the creative to make sure that you're integrated in the right way, which takes a little bit of time. But over long periods of time, the strategy can grow and change. And we're very lucky in that we've worked with pretty much all the clients that we started with 6 years ago. We're still working with, so I haven't made a total mistake. Totally messed it up. Cool. But we're doing different things, deeper, richer, broader, and that building that trust with the right shows and the right people.
Proper long-term relationships, in fact.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot of Valentine's Day love in the room. So with that in mind, let's turn to your questions. Ben, what have we got?
We've got a few things coming in, and we've obviously had a really great chat already off the back of the spectrum of festivals that Marmo represents. But we're right in saying there's a new one coming to the party.
There is a new one.
And it would be, I think...
Hence the bags under my arms. We'll make up.
I think it would be only right we have a quick chat about that and find out what that's...
Yeah, we launched 2 days ago, I think it was, Somersault Festival. Somersault has kind of blindsided people. I think Mama in the past has done a lot of talking about what we were going to do, so we thought we'd do less talking about what we were going to do and just do it. So we've kind of blindsided people with this one. They weren't really sure what was landing. It's going to be in the West Country, and we are presenting this actually as a summer camp. So it's a summer camp with a festival attached, as opposed to this is a festival. So we are presenting a show which is no longer surrounded by a barrier, which are the festival boundaries. We are reaching out into the locality to bring into the festival loads of things for people to do. So we are presenting a festival which is fundamentally a hell of a lot cheaper than going to Devon and taking an £800 cottage for the week. We're saying come and buy a festival ticket and we will provide you surf lessons in Croyd, and you can go cycling over Exmoor, and you can go canoeing, and you can go kayaking, etc., etc. We provide full campsite services. And then on the Friday, we open up the festival, and it's campfire feast with great chefs, and it's theatre, and it's amazing music. We've got a real folk vibe, soul surfing vibe with Jack Johnson and Ben Howard, and we are providing a fully kitted out opportunity for you to enjoy with your family a variety of different entertainment.
We've talked about equity of festivals, and testament to that is the likes of Mulberry bringing in Wilderness to present at Fashion Week. What does a new festival present to brands? What are the opportunities there? I'm not tying in now to, I know if I go to Wilderness with my brand, I'm tying in with this equity, a long-standing equity, high art, that creativity. Somersault, a new festival, a new opportunity. How can I bring my brand into that, and what's it going to mean for me in the future?
I think maybe from a brand perspective, if you are a new brand to market, then I do see a value of maybe getting on board with a new festival, and then you can grow together. I'm a big advocate of relationship building, no matter how big an organisation you may be. I do see the advantage of coming to Rory or coming to whoever and say, guys, we've heard about this festival, we're very interested, we think it fits our market, do a little bit more research and conversation around that. And then on the other side of the coin, you may have some big, huge high street brands out there that would really want to go straight into the bigger 50, 60,000 festivals, which I suppose where global gathering becomes slightly more of an appeal to them, much more of a specific audience. So there are pros and cons for both of it, but what Rory offers, all of you people out there, is quite a broad spectrum of festivals that cover all ages, all demographics, and all interests really. So I just can't keep coming back to this word research. You should do a little bit of research and see what opportunities are out there, because it's a hugely open environment to get involved in, I feel personally.
I think also with the launching of new formats like Somersault, there's a lot of PR around it and a lot of opportunities that the brands can really grow with, like particularly from that launch period.
Yeah, to be self-critical about our industry. I don't think we produce nearly enough research, quite frankly. I think as a business, as a general industry, we put too much emphasis on brands doing their own research. I think we put too much emphasis on agencies having to do their own research. And actually the most important thing is everybody can put down their competitive knives. The business should be getting together on two levels, I think. And I know actually Live Nation, Jim at Live Nation shares this, and I'd be interested to know, it's not some work that I've done enough on yet, but that we should be having industry research about festival engagement on a pretty serious level, actually, both qualitative and quantitative. And I think that we need to be working together to understand how we can homogenise campaigns but still maintain that essence of boutiqueness that we need to get in certain layers of the cake.
Could you see cross-promoter campaigns?
Yeah, I can. Jim and I have spoken about it, and also I know that AEG are engaged with an idea around that. And actually, we are proposing to do a round agency presentation with the three of us, not presenting our own wares in any way, shape or form, but demonstrating the festival business as a medium, as a really genuine medium. But the only way that we can do that is to give agencies an understanding that they can get the same thing in each organisation, because then we become easier to buy and easier to plan, and also we can prove through research that it works.
I think that would be fantastic if that came up, because it would give brands who are sort of tentatively looking to test this particular market for Mama to pass information to us and discuss it with potential brands. It's invaluable. I mean, who would take a chance on what could be quite a investment? Anyone would need as much information as you possibly can glean. So
brand owners need to set KPIs,
to hear that is fantastic.
And that's the only way they can set those KPIs.
Absolutely.
It's proper recognition of the pressures that marketing managers and directors and CEOs are under for demonstration of proof. And this is difficult in festival land. Sometimes you just got to go with your gut. But I think, you know, when there's an understanding, a real understanding of what return in investment, not lip service from the fair, oh no, I know you've got to get a return on your investment, but what a real understanding of what pressures are for marketing directors to make sure that there is a return for their money, especially in the environment we still exist in, is really important. It's really important. That's something that the brand team at Mama hold very dear, is a key understanding. And unless the business is really committed to that, then you can't expect to renew those relationships and share that strategic sort of imperative. But again, I think there's also, I think more and more importantly in today's mixed up media world, the face-to-face, the direct contact between a brand and its audience. So not the Twitter, not the Facebook, not the online, not the press campaign, not the TV, but the moment where a brand actually stands in front of its customer for real and has that conversation. That is the thing that needs the most work. Because if you get it wrong, you'll never get it back. Never forget you. They will never forget you. And the other challenge around that, so you really, the more effort, the more finish, the more finesse, the more all the alchemy aspects of that you can get right, you will build amazing brands off that. And the other thing is that to make sure that communication is also mirrored by all of the rest of your communication. And often there's a problem when budgets is made available at the end of you know, oh, we've got 20 grand to go and do something at a festival, and they do something at a festival which is right, but then that's completely incongruous with all the advertising that's running around it. So people come out and go, it doesn't make any sense. So if you're going to be in that business, in that space, you have to make sure it all joins together.
Okay,
and that leads us nicely to what I'm going to call the quick fire round, because we're pushing for time and we've got some questions to get through. We've talked about the engagement at the festival and when I go and how I begin that process. I'm used to going to shopping centres or taking an experiential tour where I've got a catalogue of space that I can book from. Is that how I can begin? Yeah, I need to budget these things. I have my yearly spend I can put into these. What's the process behind that? Is there a particular person to talk to? Do I know that I have X, Y, and Z spaces to pick from at a festival?
It depends which kind of festival you're going for. So, you know, there are festivals, you know, like I said with Live Nation and AG's festivals, it's going to be much more, here's a space, it's 20 by 20, this is how much it's going to cost you. You're allowed to roam 20 feet outside of it, etc. That kind of approach makes me feel a bit ill. But those festivals do exist and they definitely play their part, and they can be for the more kind of sample-based stuff and for the more kind of either bar-based stuff. That can be a very useful approach. I think that definitely works. But it's you've got to put the onus on the festival to make it easy for the brand. That's the most important aspect. If there's going to be, if you're connecting yourself to the passion point or integrating your brand into the festival in a much more programmed way, then the looser brief that you can provide, the better. So I know it might sound mad, but the brief that we would prefer is, hi, we've got a brand, we want to be involved with your festival, but we don't know what to do, can you help? Is perfect. The brand which is very prescribed doesn't work for us because essentially we haven't been part of the planning funnel, so we don't know what questions they were asking themselves
on the way to get there.
To get to the big question they're asking, which is, what do we do at the festival? Here's the brief. And if we get a brief, we feel we've failed because we know that brief has gone to 4 other festival owners, and we know they're all going to be providing exactly the same idea. What we like is using the talent within our teams and those understandings of the festival culture and our audience to design the idea for the brand. And really a brand should be looking to get 5 completely different ideas from 5 different media owners. And if they haven't, they've failed.
Okay, and then on to Paul and Orla, a couple of questions with the comparison between camping festivals and license restricted ones, if we want to call them that for now. Is there a cut-off period on camping festivals where it gets into the nighttime festivities, and there's just no point as a brand owner going out? Or does nighttime present a really unique engagement opportunity?
Well, yes, it does. To a point, let's be honest. Let's be true. Clients can be the worst of all, to be honest with you. But
I've seen you have a cut-off point.
I think there's enough.
Yeah,
but I think, no, on a serious note, I think you've got to be realistic, and let's use, wilderness, global, completely different animals. But if you look at, let's say, global game, there does come a cut-off point where I think to try and endeavour to communicate with people after, the 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, I think it's very, very difficult, very, very difficult. And it just, I think you're doing more harm if you try and do that. On the other side of the coin, there are the camping festivals you touch on, where you have slightly different audience, more family-generated audiences, where they're open for communication. So I just think it depends what brand, where you go, just be a little bit careful, but don't just say, oh, we see you retail 24 hours at a particular festival, we will go 24 hours.
Does it require a different kind of communication?
I think it does, depending on what brands there are. So yes, I think there is maybe...
You may need to fold in a number of different strategies.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely.
So there might be
absolutely.
opportunities in the campsites, perhaps when people are going back to their tents or heading home for the night, where there could be an opportunity to engage, but it would be in a very different way to how you would engage with someone in the main arena.
I think that links back into what Rory just touched on. It's using the festival knowledge and working with Tim Harvey, who Rory mentioned earlier. Such a creative, I know the scars, but give Tim is a hugely creative genius in some respect. And I think if you use that knowledge that Tim has, don't tell him I said that, Rory. If you use that knowledge, you will be led by the festival, and they will put you in the right direction and get involved in your creative aspect and bring something that works for the brand and just as importantly works for the festival. They don't want a sterile sort of thing that comes out the NEC, so this is where we're retailing our particular wares from. It's not what this
channel is all about.
No, not at all.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, we're going to try and get one or two more in. The next question is directed straight for Orla. Roses are red, violets are blue, and no. We will take a slightly different tack though. We've thrown around the word sort of retail or experiential. A lot of what we've discussed goes into one of those two segments. It's an experience brand. I want product trial, I want equity, I want to get content out of it, or I'm a retailer. I want to go in and it's essentially another outlet channel for me. What about those brands that sit in the middle? Let's look at high street brands, for example. And someone's asked the question rather pertinently. For a high street retailer and for their brand, is it just another outlet channel, or can they approach things differently and get more out of it?
Go Rory.
I've got a really good example, which is about as high street as you could get. So you'd think wilderness, being quite highbrow, it would be incapable of kind of dealing with high street actually in the way that it's created, which is completely boutique. But we are doing something amazing for Accessorize this year. So we are creating a sort of craft-led, I don't know, it's Accessorize diner, to be honest. And we're creating this tent which is Accessorize blown up in a variety of different ways, right down to the craft of Accessorize. So it's kind of all the way back to how it's actually produced and getting people involved with the craft aspect of it. But it's done in a conceptual way, so it's completely exploded Accessorize. So there are ways to do it. All it takes is a little bit of imagination. I'd say, all of our brand is now a high street brand, although it's slightly up there. Wearing a little myself. Got to wear some toweling, these things. But we're doing something for them which is much more. It's much more just a nod to their name, which is we're building a pontoon. They're building a pontoon which is going to be donated by them, and they're going to be branded within the pontoon, etc. So for high street brands, they can come and play. They can come and play with the mindset. But actually, all a brand needs to do is come and help. Come and be part of it. Don't come and take anything away. And I think that's really important. At the end of the day, our job is to create amazing memories for people. We're a pretty useless business. We don't save lives. We don't sort of solve the water problems in Africa. Our job is to make memories for people. And the company that does that the best wins in our business. But if brands can come and help be part of that, then they will be part of something that people will never forget. And so you can come and build, there's never been a pontoon at the lake at Wilderness. All of Bob Brown are coming and make it amazing and easy to dive off and live that space. And there's going to be hundreds of thousands, the entire festival is going to be over that space. And people will come away going, the pontoon's great, it's fantastic, it's made my life easier. And that could be, that you can work those things into the campsite. You know, it could be just somebody with a branded t-shirt helping you carry your stuff in. You know, those things don't go away, come and help.
But you have to look at the festival goers' needs first.
Correct.
Understand their needs and then attach your brand to it.
Yeah.
But then to track back to one of the previous points we discussed, that's brilliant. So we're coming in and taking the example of the pontoon. People are going to go away and think, that pontoon was bloody brilliant. I was able to go into the lake and it was completely different. I can see how that works for Wilderness. That adds another facet to the already incredible picture. But the brand that then backs that, what's their, you know, we talked about ROI before, their needs to when that comes back to the end of year budget, what does that sit against on ROI?
At the end of the day, it's not an expensive piece of activation. Actually, they want to be part of that audience. It's a very valuable audience. You know, the expenditure on site at Wilderness is fairly extraordinary. Actually, it's Gloucestershire. It's the Prime Minister's county. There's something going on there. Like I said, it wasn't the treasurer. He's not spending a penny. But you know, this is not an expensive intrusion for them. This is something to help with. But for them, it's going to play a very important part in terms of the video work that goes on, which is now going to hundreds of thousands of people. It plays an integral part in the actual sort of wireframing of the show. It'll be branded in an integrated way, and people will be messaged and twittered and Facebook. So actually, it's going to become a central aspect of kind of how people enjoy the lakes. So it's a subliminal message that they've got.
But it requires a different way of looking at return on investment and your KPIs, which is something, as you said earlier, the industry can help evaluate and can help generate a way of looking at that for the brand owners we're talking to today.
Correct. I think if you're driving ROI, like fundamental, if you want to sell stuff, then Wilderness isn't the right place for you. It's definitely somewhere which is about driving a brand equity and about being seen in a surprising place, in a surprising space. If you're looking to drive more direct sale, then inner London shows can actually do that a little bit harder for you, I think. Boutique is definitely more brand. So you've just got to slice and dice your shows correctly, and with the help of a good agency and the help of a good promoter, they'll do that for you. Yeah.
You can do that. I see we're coming to time, Ben. Do we have time for just one last short question?
Well, I'll have to pick
on a special day like this. I'm sure we have a little bit more romantic time.
Pick a good one if we are going to go for that. We've got social. And we've got, they're actually...
social is absolutely appropriate for today. Let's have a social question.
Well, let's just go with I know we've discussed around building bespoke solutions for each festival that you're going to. And that goes all the way into social with which channel I'm using. But there is a killer question. Where years ago we all knew, or we all thought to understand that we had to have a presence on Facebook. Is there a killer app? Is there a killer platform that we need to be involved with at the moment?
I don't think there's any one set platform that you can adopt and say this is what you should be doing as a brand. I think it's going to vary for every single brand, and there are so many different forms of social media out there now. Like you say, it's not just Facebook and Twitter, which, I mean, Facebook particularly is perhaps a little bit aging a little. There are things that appeal to the much younger demographic, like feed, and just so many different ways to communicate that it really is about finding the one that works with you best. And then I think as a brand, being true to yourselves and not trying to engineer anything, but make it happen from those meaningful experiences that are happening on the festival site.
I think that's a great top tip to add to your top tips from last week. I think we are going to have to wrap now, very sadly, because it's been a great session. Thank you very much to our panel, especially to Rory for joining us.
God bless you. Thank you.
And to everyone who's taken the time to log in and listen. We're now well into the flow of our festival expert season. So don't forget to log in at 11 a.m. next Friday, when we'll be talking to two independent promoters, Simon Malpas, behind 2000 Trees and ArcTanGent, and Alex Dixon, who's behind Why Not and Trucks.
Much better.
All award-winning festivals and whom Rory knows well. I hope our Valentine's webcast will generate some long-lasting relationships between consenting brands and promoters. Rory's always available. Here's wishing everyone a romantic Festival Friday. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.